Good morning, everyone. Uh, our last class was 2 or 3 weeks before. Uh, I hope that all of you are remembering the points discussed in the last classes. Uh, we have seen almost all malicious software types, their mode of attack, their countermeasures, and etc. Now we are going to categorize major network and system attacks that may happen on normal system or in particularly servers. Now as a classification you can see total 9 types of attacks. They are mutually related to, some of them are related and some of them are distinct in nature. Anyway, we start with brute force attacks, then denial of service attacks, then its variant distributed denial of service attack, then buffer overflow attacks, ping of death, session hijacking, man in the middle attack, dictionary attack, and replay attacks. We will see all these kinds of attacks in much more detail in the coming sessions, and these are very important as far as your examination are concerned. In examination, these attacks are asked repeatedly in various years. So all must pay maximum attention on understanding the basic idea of all these kinds of attacks and all aspects of these kinds of attacks, so that you can score good marks in your exams. And these are almost all these attacks are even now in existence in our cyber world. So as all of us are using cyber services regularly, we must pay maximum attention of getting rid of all these kinds of attacks. So identifying or understanding in detail about all these attacks will help you to become secured while using various web services. We start with brute force attacks. So as the name suggests, this brute force, it is a continuous type of attack. That means various different types of attempts are made to get into the server or the destination or the victim computer in order to unleash the attacks. So a brute force attack is guessing user ID or password combination on a service that attempts to authenticate the user before access is granted. As all of us know, our user ID, it would be normally matches with our name or our full name, or maybe it may be our phone number, etc. In your SBT login too, we are using phone number as username, and your email ID would be starting have some match with your name, your full name, or something similar. So guessing a user ID is very simple if your name or if your phone number is known to the attacker. And in the case of password also, if we give weaker passwords, then there is a chance for getting hacked. Your account may be hacked by the hacker easily. Why? Because our normal behavior would be studied by the hacker. So if the hacker knows any of your password, that means a password of something like a email or something, okay, if they know password of your email, and that a hacker may be your friend. So if that friend knows your email password, then he guesses the password given by you in your bank account maybe. there is a chance for a match between the password given for your email account and that of a bank account. There is a chance. Some persons may give same password for email account and bank account too, in the case of internet banking. Why? Because it is not possible to remember uh, a large number of passwords, so that we may choose the same password for many accounts, maybe including bank account. So if some of your friend who is a hacker knows your email password, then he may try to crack into your bank account using the same password or different versions of your email passwords. We may give password of our bank account which has some match with your Gmail or email account. So if your email account is your phone number, then he may try some other combination of your mobile number to get access into your bank account. Or there is another chance. We usually give our date of birth as password in various accounts. That could be checked by or used by the hacker to get into your authenticated accounts. So this kind of brute force attack, the attacker tries all the measures to, all the combinations to find out your password in a bank account or something. The common type of services that can be brute forced are Telnet, FTP, SSH, HTTP, POP, IMAP. All these are application layer protocols. You might have studied about all these things. Once attacker has a list of user accounts, they can begin trying to gain shell access to the target system by guessing the password associated with one of the IDs. So one of the common mistakes we usually do is giving phone number or date of birth or something similar as our password. That should be avoided in any way. Our password must be strong enough. Nowadays all the account maintaining people, they are asking us to make our password stronger with at least one capital letter, at least one number, at least one special character, and minimum 8 characters length. All these are various criteria to ensure the strength of your password. So try to give strong passwords, especially in the case of bank account or something similar. And they usually suggest us to change our password regularly, once in a month or at least one in 2 or 6 months gap. We must change our password, and we must avoid logging into our bank account, internet banking, from some unknown computers. We should not log into our system, into our internet banking or something similar from unknown systems. Unknown system means common systems which are used by public, from in internet cafes or from some other friends or some other person's computer. You must avoid such cases. You always use trusted systems to log in into your bank account or such critical accounts. Most passwords are guessed via an automated brute force utility. Attackers can use several tools to automate brute forcing, such as TSC Hydra, Pop.C, SNMP brute, etc. These are various tools used for unleashing brute force attacks. They will have a set of various possible passwords. So one of your password is known, or if your name is known to the hacker, he will try all the possible combinations of password you may make from using these kinds of tools. So they will have a database helping the hacker to find out the password of a user if user one or two user credential is given, something like your phone number, your name, etc. From that, these tools guesses the passwords that you may create. Okay. Now, what are the countermeasures, or how to block, how to get rid of this brute force attack? That we will see. The best defense for brute force guessing is to use strong passwords. I have already mentioned you many combination of alphabets both in small and capital case, and numbers, special characters, etc. Using all these things, and use a password of minimum 8 characters long. All these are very all these are suggestions to make our password stronger, and you may periodically change the password. One-time password mechanism would be most desirable. That we can see in our internet banking and all. Whenever we transact money, a one-time password will be sent to a registered mobile using which only the transaction is performed. As a last step of transaction, a message will come to the registered mobile number, so that only the legitimate user can enter that one-time password to finally authenticating the transaction. Okay. So most of our banks are using this kind of countermeasures in order to block possibly the brute force attack. And second one, effective password management is essential. Some possible password policies. We have already seen password length. Minimum password length should be set. Normally it is 8, set by almost every managers. Then minimum number of weeks before a password can be changed. So weekly or monthly this password should be changed. And then maximum number of weeks before password must be changed. That means minimum after 1 week or 2 weeks we must change. And we can put another criteria too. Before expiring 2 months you must change your password. Okay, so minimum and maximum limits can be placed. Then warn weeks, a number of weeks to warn a user ahead of time their password is about to expire. So if we have set minimum week as 1 and maximum week as 8, so from 4 to 7 we can set 1 week, then 4 to 7 as 1 weeks. So during this time we will get warning message saying that your password should be changed before this date. Okay. And history, number of passwords stored in password history. Users will not be allowed to reuse these values. And there is another mechanism too. Nowadays you can see in many places that whenever you change your password, they won't allow you to use the passwords you had used minimum 3 number of times. That means last password will not be allowed, second last password will not be allowed. Similarly, third last password also will not be allowed as a new password. Okay, so whenever you try to change your password, the system will not allow to use the last 3 password you had used. Okay, so such kind of security measures can be deployed in order to block the brute force attack. And lastly, min alpha, min digit, min special, min lower, min upper. This is the various conditions that the system may put forward to create your password. We have already seen minimum number of alphabets, or a minimum one capital letter is needed, or minimum this many digits are needed, and this many special characters are needed. So all these are various criteria or conditions that we can use to make our password stronger and thus get rid of brute force attack. So brute force attacker will guess our password by exploiting our name or phone number if known to the hacker. Now we move on to our next type of attack, that is denial of service attack. As the name suggests, denial of service. So the service given by the system or the server is denied temporarily or permanently by the hacker, so that legitimate user or genuine users will be blocked from getting that service from the server. So this hacker aims one particular server and he tries all the way to block that server by sending duplicate or dummy request, so that this server will be busy in handling such kind of messages, so that the request from or service request from genuine users could not be handled by the server. Okay. So denial of service, it's a kind of malicious attempt to make a server or a network resource unavailable to users, usually by temporarily interrupting or suspending the service of a host connected to the internet. So always the server will be busy in handling the dummy messages or dummy requests sent by the hacker. Motivation for DOS attack. Why hackers are using this kind of attack? There are two reasons. First one is frustration after repeated hacking attempts. If a hacker fails to hack a server many number of times, so finally he will try to use the less this denial of service attack is not a strong attack. It is a weak attack. Why? Because using this attack, no hacker can get any data from the server. He only can make the server busy. That's all. Okay. Legitimate or genuine users will not get any service from the hacker, service from the server. That's only after effect of this attack, denial of service attack. So this hacker would have tried to hack the same server before, and he might have failed in all those attempts. So as a revenge, to take revenge, he might be using this denial of service attack, so that other genuine users will not get the service from the server. And second one is political revenge against someone or organization. If you are angry at some person, if you are physically not fit to if you are not fit to physically attack somebody, you can unleash the cyber attacks like this, denial of service attacks. So the server will be busy in managing your dummy requests, and the actual users will not get the service from the server. Okay. So political attacks also may be there, or personal revenge may be there, and somehow the hackers, the failed hackers, those hackers who failed to attack the server before may unleash this denial of service attack. It is one of the weaker kind of attack. Why? Because by this attack, no hacker will get any information from the server. Okay, the only thing he can do is make the server busy for a particular period of time. Okay, that's all. There are many type of attacks crafted especially for can see as a result of this what happens to our server, congesting network resources. So not only the server, all the systems related to the network will be getting congested. And second one, draining the CPU memory. The CPU will be busy with dealing with the dummy request from the hacker, so that CPU will be always busy with this kind of dummy requests, so that the memory would be full, so that no genuine requests may reach the memory of the server, reducing the computing power. Normally the major time of the CPU is especially dedicated to uh, these kinds of dummy service handling, so that it computing power, that means the genuine users will get less computing power or less service from the server. Most of the time the genuine users will not get any service from the server. The next one, exploiting timers. The timer, that is another hardware used in servers or in computers also. You can see timers. So exploiting this timer is another kind of another after effect of this kind of attack. And similarly, poisoning domain name translation, etc. We know that there is a DNS, that means domain name service, available in the net, which translates the host name to IP address and back from IP address to host name. If you go on www.google.com, this DNS service will convert the google.com into corresponding IP address, and when we get the result back, this IP address will be converted to this URL www.google.com back. So this is a service available in our internet. So we can make this DNS servers also busy by handling this kind of dummy requests, so that genuine requests will not be handled by the servers. Now there are several flavors of denial of service that could disrupt a normal service. The attacking methods are classified into two methods. You might have heard about flooding. Okay, flood is a usual term we usually hear related with natural calamity. Recently in Kerala also we also affected by the flood. So as we know, in flood there will be a large quantity of water. In the similar way here also, when a server receives a flood or a large number of requests at the same time, the server will be always in a confusion, or it will be in a busy state in handling all these requests. Okay, so first type would be to flood the network, not leaving enough bandwidth for the legitimate packets to get through. That is flooding. The second one, other method, is to crash a hardware or software item to make it inoperable. So the hacker's main aim is to block the service in any way. So he will try all the ways to block the services, genuine services given by the server. So in the second method, the hacker may aim at various hardware or software tools available in the server. He may block those services given by those hardware and software, so that one part of the server will be attacked by the hacker, and that part will not be operating properly. That will surely result in the total service of the server. Web servers, routing devices, DNS lookup servers are the common targets that could be crashed during an attack. So as we know, a web server, if the main web server is hacked by the denial of service hacker, then the whole service will be blocked. Similarly, routing devices, one or two routing devices are flooded by the hacker, denial of service hacker, then that path or that device will be it will become inoperable. And similarly, as we have seen earlier, DNS lookup servers, if that is busy or that is not working, then this translation to and from a web address or a URL and IP address will not take place. So all these are different ways of making a software or hardware not working in a server. So denial of service attacker will aim all these points. Now next point is distributed denial of service attack. This is a small variation of denial of service we have already seen. So distributed denial of service. In the case of denial of service, only one hacker would be using only one system to unleash the attack. But in the case of distributed denial of service, this hacker will exploit many other systems to act as the hacking systems. So first of all, the distributed denial of service hacker will attack other systems to make them as hackers, and that process may propagate to any level, so that many systems would be acting as hackers, that you can see here in this diagram. A single attacker, he attacks in this diagram. That attacker hacked 3 systems, okay, and they are known as masters, and using these masters he attacked more number of systems. Each masters hacking 2 systems each, so total 6 systems are acting as slaves. And now these slaves, they are using 6 more systems as reflectors, and finally the attacks from all these systems reaches the victim, so that the strength of the attack will be more when compared to the denial of service attack. In the case of denial of service attack, the hacker makes use of only one system, but in the case of distributed denial of service, he first hacks other systems to make them as hackers at the next level. And similarly, it may go to many levels, like first level hacked systems are known as masters. Then the second level you can see many slaves, and the third level you can see many reflectors, and finally from these the victim server is attacked. Okay. So in a distributed DDoS attack, an attacker may use our own computer to attack another computer by taking advantage of security vulnerabilities of weaknesses. An attacker could take control of your computer, and all systems from all these levels will unleash the attacks on the victim, so that the server would be in more dangerous position. Mainly we can classify the DDoS attacks into 3. First one is application layer attack. Application layer DDoS attacks are attacks that target Windows, Apache, OpenBSD or other software vulnerabilities to perform the attack and crash the server. So it aims at the top level software, that means operating system, to get the server busy. So Windows, Apache, OpenBSD, it is also one kind of operating system used in networking devices and all. It's now OS with embedded security features. Okay. So this application layer DDoS attack, it unleashes attacks on Windows, Apache, OpenBSD and other software. That means top level software to crash the server. Second one is protocol DDoS attack. A protocol DDoS attack is a DOS attack on the protocol level. This category includes send, flood, ping off, death and more. We will see ping off death in more detail in the coming topic. As a coming topic, we will see ping off death. That means an ICMP packet will be used for the attack. That we will see as a next topic. Okay. Next one, volume based DDoS attack. This type of attack includes ICMP floods, UDP floods and other kinds of floods performed via spoofed packets. So in the DOS attacks we had seen what is flooding. So using this flooding technique at various protocol layers is known as volume based DDoS attacks. ICMP based floods, UDP floods and all other kinds of flooding. That kind of attack is known as volume based DDoS attacks. So large quantity of requests will be sent by the hacker or the set of hackers. Okay, here not only a single hacker is hacking the victim system or a server, a large number of other systems hacked by the main hacker will be attacking the server. There are many tools available for free that can be used to flood a server and perform an attack. First one is LOIC, Low Orbit Ion Cannon. Okay, that is one kind of tool used for unleashing these DDoS attacks. Even though all these many of these tools are freely available on internet, and it's really less hard to use all these kinds of software, you must pay attention in not using all these kinds of tools freely. Okay, you must not use them without taking any caution. Why? Because it is a breach of security, and the cyber nowadays our cyber monitoring system is very strong, so that even if you use this system just for curiosity, you will know if that attack becomes so hard or so vital, then you will be punished. Okay, so you must pay attention in not using all these things just on the basis of curiosity. Okay, even though all these things are freely available and they are very easy to use, you must not use all these kinds of things. Why? Because cyber laws are so strong nowadays, and you will be easily monitored, you will be easily your identity will be easily revealed out, so that you must not use all these kinds of attacking softwares directly from the net. Okay, only after detailed study, and if you choose your ethical hacking as your main career, okay, only after getting the proper advice from the genuine persons or legitimate persons, you can use these kinds of tools for ethical hacking purpose only. You must never become hacker or black hat hackers. Okay, you must be always white hat hackers. You must help others to you must utilize your skills to help others. Okay, don't make any harm to any other people. Okay, why? Because our web is so dangerous. Many dangerous tools are available in our web, so you must pay maximum attention using all these kinds of tools. Okay, that's a strict advice I may give all of you. Just on the basis of curiosity, you must never use any of these tools. Okay, so next tool is first tool is LOIC, Low Orbit Ion Cannon. It is one of the most popular DOS attacking tools freely available in the internet. It can be used simply by a user to perform DOS attack on small servers. Okay, so LOIC is a less strong tool which is used for only attacking the small servers. This tool performs DOS attacks by sending UDP, TCP or HTTP requests to the victim server. XOIC, it's another tool. It's another nice DOS attacking tool. It performs a DOS attack on any server with an IP address, a user selected port, and a user selected protocol. In general, the tool comes with 3 attacking modes. First one, known as test mode, is very basic. Second is normal DOS mode, and last one comes with a TCP, HTTP or UDP ICMP message attack. So XOIC has 3 mode or 3 levels of attacks. First one is basic, second one is moderate or normal, and third one is heavy or severe attack mode, and third one is DDO sim, that means DDoS simulator. As the name suggests, it is used to perform DDoS attacks by simulating several zombie hosts. All zombie hosts create full TCP connections to the target servers. Okay, so this tool is used by the hacker to make other systems as hackers. As we have seen in this diagram, a single hacker attacking three other systems to make them masters. These three masters will be attacking uh, other systems to make them slaves, reflectors, and so on. So our DDoS simulation, that tool allows attacker to make other systems as masters or slaves or reflectors. Okay, so that other system that attacked systems will also unleash attack on the target system. That means a hacker. That means a server. Okay. Now we will see a ping off death attack that we had seen as an example of protocol DDoS attacks. So now we will see the ping off death attack. In a ping off death attack, the attacker creates an ICMP packet, ICMP Internet Control Message Protocol. You may be knowing this. It is used internally in a network by a router or a server in order to communicate each other. That means to check whether the communication is success or not, or on sending messages to a particular system to inform them about the failure of a system or something like that. So it is a protocol used for communicating the data transfer status inside a network. So usually an ICMP packet is coming as part of the IPv4 packet, and usually its maximum length is 65,535 bytes. But in this ping off death attack, the hacker will send an ICMP packet larger than 65,535 bytes length, so that this ping off death attack is not so common nowadays. Why? Because it was effective only in olden days. In the systems used by the olden days, this ping off death attack was severe, but in the case of modern computers, this ping off death attack has no role at all. Okay, so the olden systems, they had no way of handling packets of length more than 65,535 bytes, so that on receiving such a big packet or a big ICMP packet, those systems would be reaching the crash state. Why? Because they had no method to handle such a big packet. But in the case of modern system, now many sophisticated tools are available to neglect these kind of larger packets, or by picking or identifying these kinds of larger packets and eliminate from the network. So many tools have been introduced nowadays in modern systems to get rid of this ping off death attack. It had a major role in olden days only. Okay. So most of the systems today are not affected by this exploit, because modern systems have all the tools to get rid of this ping off death attack. So this ICMP packet diagram. So inside this IP packet, this ICMP packet is included. So IP header comes first, then comes ICMP header, then comes ICMP data. Usually this ICMP data will be less than or equal to 65,507 or 535 bytes length. But these ping off death hackers, they will create an ICMP packet larger than this size, so that olden system would be entering into crash state. The size of a normally correctly formed IPv4 packet, including IP header, is this much length, 65,535 altogether. Now many historical computer systems simply could not handle larger packets, so they would crash normally. This bug was easily exploited in early TCP/IP implementations, including Mac, Windows, Unix, Linux, etc. All those operating systems were lacking proper handling methods on this ping of attack, ping of death attack. Now, since sending a ping packet larger than 65,535 bytes violates the Internet Protocol, attackers would generally send malformed packets in fragments. So, this server, these hackers will be creating such a huge ICMP packets and dividing them into smaller fragments. But on receiving all these fragments at the receiver side by the server, we will reassemble all these fragments to make larger packet larger than 65,535 bytes long, so that those historical systems would normally crash. And as a countermeasure of this ping of death attacks, it's particularly effective because attackers' identity could be easily spoofed. Moreover, a ping of death attacker would need no detailed knowledge of the machine or he or she was attacking except for its IP address. The attacker knows only the IP address of the server to unleash the attack. As a countermeasure of ping of death attack, we will see to avoid ping of death attack and its variants, many sites block ICMP ping messages altogether. That is not a good idea. If they try to block all the ICMP ping messages at their firewalls, then genuine ICMP packets also would be blocked by the firewall, so that communication would not be correct. So such kind of prevention method cannot be used everywhere. Second one is a much smarter approach that would selectively block fragmented pings. So it identifies such kind of ICMP packets which are part of the ping of death attack and filters them out. Okay, that is a much smarter approach which can be used as a countermeasure of ping of death attack. And third one is DDoS protection services. There are many tools used for blocking this kind of attack. They intelligently and preemptively identify and filter out all abnormally larger packets, even if they are fragmented, eliminating the threat of ping of death attack and similar packet based attacks altogether. So they also intelligently identifies the larger packets coming in the network and eliminating such larger packets or larger fragments will safeguard our systems from ping of death attack. Okay. So these are main different kinds of attacks we had seen today. Brute force attack, then denial of service attack, and then distributed denial of service attacks. We will see the remaining types of attacks in the next class.